There's a lot more resting on you than you think. And you know that. You don't wake up in the morning berating yourself for telling the truth. You wake up at 4 in the morning berating yourself for violating your conscience. Classically, and at least in some strains of Christian thinking, conscience is associated with Christ or with the Holy Spirit. It's the voice of God within. I'm aware of all the criticisms of ideas like that, but you know, it's really something that you can't control your conscience. So what is it exactly? It's not you. You're responsible to it. It holds you accountable. It transcends you. So what is it? Well, if you think it's nothing, well, violate it for a while and see what happens. So, you know, I hope what I wrote in Beyond Order is true. And if it's true, it should do some good, because what's true does good. At least that's the hope. Don't underestimate the hole your absence would leave. You know, each of us, we're remarkable creatures, and we have something to offer to the world, to our people we love, to the world at large. And it's our responsibility to make that manifest, and we move a little farther away from paradise every time that doesn't happen. Really. So, wow. You know, this is serious business, and we're very technologically powerful now. We can't afford too much psychological immaturity. You know, I don't know how you lay it out properly, but you tell people that you love how to avoid the road to hell. And you don't do that because you're shaking your finger at them or because you're a moral authority. You do it because you don't want them to burn. And I think there's too much of the moral authority still in the church and not enough of the, you know, the love that helps people avoid the fire. Well, I think the deck is stacked against everyone to some degree because life is very difficult and we all die. But some people do have it harder than others. And all of us have it very hard at some times in our lives. It's like, well, what's the alternative? You take responsibility for that and try to struggle uphill, because the alternative makes everything worse. It's not like it's fair. I know perfectly well that people have brutal lives. I've been a psychotherapist for 20 years. I've seen things you can't imagine. Horror shows that you can't fathom. And people who have been hurt in so many ways, so many dimensions. It's like, bitter? Should they be bitter? Should they be resentful? Should they become violent? These things don't help. They have to struggle uphill despite their excess burden. And it's responsibility, not guilt. You know, it's not necessarily their fault. That's not the point. But that's it. If you're in a low place, the opportunity that presents itself to you is going to be low. And it's going to be very tempting to you because you're arrogant and resentful to say, well, that's not good enough for me. It's like, well, do you have an alternative? If you don't have an alternative, then an inch up is up. And it's the right trajectory, you know. And so that's humility. It's like, you're low. You take what's given to you, and you see if you can make it work. And the thing is, that works way faster than people think. Even because I worked as a dishwasher when I was a kid, you know, for a year or so, and it was really hard to begin with because I didn't know what I was doing. And the German chef, who was kind of a tough guy, just let me flounder around for 2 weeks. So then you might ask yourself, well, what's the best antidote to the discomfort of life? And you might say, well, it's comfort. And I suppose that's what you act out when you swaddle a baby. But a better antidote is something like adventure to excellence. And that's far better antidote to suffering than the mere absence of suffering. That's the bravery of a mother to allow that to happen. But not only that, to facilitate it. So what about... Way you go, kid. Way you go. Well, why? It's dangerous out there. It's like, yeah, no kidding. It's more dangerous here if you stay with me. So you might lose your body out there in the world, but if you stay here, you lose your soul. What you should be pursuing instead is, well, there's two things. You should be pursuing who you could be. That'd be the first thing. It's like, because you're not who you could be, and you know it. You have guilt and shame and regret, and you berate yourself for your lack of discipline and your procrastination and all your bad habits. You know perfectly well that you're not who you could be. And God only knows who you could be. And so that's how you should be that's what you should be striving for. And associated with that, you should be attempting to formulate some conception of the highest good that you can conceive of, that you can articulate. Because why not aim for that? It's like your life is short and it's troublesome. And perhaps you need to do something worthwhile with it. You should do the most worthwhile thing. And you should figure out what that is for you. And part of that's definitely going to be to develop your character as much as possible, to dispense with those parts of you that are unworthy. And then maybe, if you're fortunate, and you do that carefully, then happiness will descend upon you from time to time. And that's the best you've got. And then also perhaps during sorrowful times, or worse, evil times, the fact that you've strengthened your character and that you're aiming at the highest that you can conceptualize, that'll give you the moral fortitude to endure without becoming corrupted during those times, and to be someone who can be relied upon in a crisis.